Good morning. Calling today's Finance Committee hearing to order. Today is Wednesday, March 6th. It's 10 a.m. and we're in room 308. We're going to be taking up two bills today, and we're actually going to be taking them out of order. So we're first going to do HB 1911 HD1. This is relating to the judiciary, and it appropriates funds for the judiciary supplemental budget. The only testifier we have is the judiciary.
Good morning, Chair Yamashita, Vice Chair Kitagawa, members of the committee, Brandon Kimura, Director of the Judiciary's Policy and Planning Department. With me today is Administrative Director of the Courts, Rod Miley, and other key administrators from the Judiciary on Oahu and in administration. Thank you very much. We testify in strong support of HB 1911, Judiciary's budget. In total, we are requesting supplemental operating funds for FY25 in the amount of $3.24 million and 4.5 new permanent positions. This is equivalent to 1 3/4% of our base budget. We further request $17 million for capital improvements, of which $3 million in operating or A funds and $14 million in GO bond or C funds. We crafted this request in late 2023, targeted to leverage areas where modest amounts of funding would have an outsized impact. We're mindful of the budgetary uncertainty and challenges, and we deeply appreciate the committee's consideration. So, thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on the judiciary's budget? Okay, seeing none, committee members, questions? Okay, seeing no questions, we're going to go back to the first bill on the agenda, House Bill 1800. This is relating to the state budget, and it adjusts and requests appropriations for the fiscal biennium 2023 to 2025 funding requirements for operations and capital improvement projects of executive branch agencies and programs. First up to testify, we have is anyone here from the Department of Hawaiian Homelands? Okay, seeing none there in support. Next up is the Hawaii State Public Library System. Oh, they're all up. Okay, they may be outside. They are in support. Next up, we have the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Tommy Johnson, the Director of Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. We support House Bill 1800, and I know that the budget is tight. I would just like to say, please consider our testimony or ask, because we are severely underfunded, and we would not have asked for the funding unless we really did need it. We run 24/7 operations that we must continue to operate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. State Library, go ahead.
Valerie Fujitani for the State Librarians. We stand on our written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up we have DBET, Stadium Authority. Okay, they may be outside. They are also in support. Next we have Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Department of Education.
Department of Education stands as testimony in support.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Department of Budget and Finance.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I figure I might as well come up and say a few words. But on behalf of the Governor and the administration, thank you for the opportunity to present to you HB 1800, which is the executive supplemental budget for the state of Hawaii. As you can see, you have the attention of the entire administration behind me, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, given the extraordinary circumstances over the past year. We also appreciate the patience that you've been able to provide the administration with regards to the multitude of variability as well as changes that have happened throughout the course of the legislative session. But with that, we will stand on our testimony in strong support, Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have DLNR.
Chair of the Board of Land and Natural Resources. We stand strong
Thank you very much, Director. Next, we have the Attorney General's Office. Thank you very much. Next, we have Department of Defense.
Chair, Vice Chair, Major General Kenneth Hara, Adjutant General State of Hawaii, we stand on our written testimony.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Hawaii State Energy Office. Thank you very much. Next, we have the University of Hawaii.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members, David Lasser, University of Hawaii. And the highest priority is just to continue.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Department of Agriculture. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. Thank you very much. Next, we have DHERD.
And in support of our testimony, available for question.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Hawaii Health Systems Corporation.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Ed Chu, and on our testimony support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Department of Human Services.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Kathy Batts, Director for the Department of Human Services, and we'll stand on our written testimony and support.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Department of Accounting and General Services.
Chair, Vice Chair, members, Keith Regan, Comptroller for the State of Hawaii. We stand on our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have DLIR. Great, thank you very much. Next, we have, is there anyone from DBED? Oh, Dana is outside. Okay. They are in support. We also have HCDA. Not sure if they're outside as well. They are also in support. Next, we have Department of Health. Thank you very much. Next, we have Department of Taxation.
Gary Sigonoma, Director of Taxation. Department stands on.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. They might be outside. They are also in support. Next, we have Executive Office on Early Learning. Thank you very much. Next, we have State Public Charter School Commission.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members.
Great, thank you very much. Next, we have the Agribusiness Development Corporation. Thank you very much. Next, we have Department of Law Enforcement. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Board of Education. Great, thank you very much. Next, we have the Judiciary. No, also in support. Next, we have the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Mark Patterson, Commissioner and Chair of the Hawaii Correctional System Oversight Commission. Stand by our written testimony and just wanted to say a few things. It has been a long journey for us since 2019 when the commission was formed, as a result of community advocacy on reform for our correctional system. As you know, when we had our first meeting in 2020 of January, it was right a few months before COVID hit. So even at that particular time, a lot of the funding going to the COVID efforts of the state of Hawaii, we were not given funds into 2022, and we were able to hire staff. So since 2022, in the past 18 months, we have had significant ability to do the mandate that we are given to work with Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation in order of setting a foundation for reform. But last year, as you folks know, we were not funded by the legislature, and we wanted to go around and talk to you folks today to give you more of an insight on what oversight does and how it can be beneficial to the overall budget of the corrections and rehabilitations. We are asking basically here in this particular ask for that you consider the Oversight Commission as part of the base budget for the Attorney General's office as we move forward so that we can sustain the commission and its work. We'll be standing by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Hawaii Tourism Authority.
Aloha Committee, Dandunaho OPE, Interim President and CEO of the Hawaii Tourism Authority. We thank you so much and stand on our testimony regarding the 60 million and 25 positions, as well as our rooftop repairs. However, we'd like to also work with you closely on looking at the additional funding and positions needed for destination management and to seriously work on marketing for Maui recovery and stabilization of our tourism industry. As we know, it's producing the revenue that will help the state in funding for the recovery going forward. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. Thank you very much. Next, we have the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Craig Hurai, the Executive Assistant at HHFDC. Executive Director Minakami apologizes, but he had to go to Maui to meet with the mayor today to update him on what we're doing on housing recovery on Maui and in Lahaina. Our budget request, we support budget requests, but we have some amendments that basically have to do with what we're doing on Maui. Depends on how much more we're going to have to do, but we do need to be fully staffed to do what we are seeing that we need to do on Maui. A lot of projects are being proposed for Leali'i, which belongs to HHFDC. So, and then we want to redevelop some projects on Maui that were burned down, like Front Street Apartments, and also Maui general housing recovery on Maui. I would just like to note that the one full-time temporary project manager 3 position we're requesting is the same position in House Bill 2292, House Draft 2 that you've already passed. I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Public Utilities Commission. Thank you very much. Next, we have Department of Transportation.
Chair, Vice Chair, members, Ed Sniffen with Hawaii DOT, stand in support.
Great, thank you very much. Next, we have Department of Hawaiian Homelands. Great, thank you very much. Next, we have DBED. Great, thank you very much. Next, we have Life of the Land. They are in support. Next, we have Community Alliance on Prisons. Not here. Okay, they are in support. Next, we have He'e Coalition. They are also in support. We also have Local Food somebody might be here. Oh, there you go. Great, thank you very much. Next, we have Local Food Coalition on Zoom. Not present, they are in support. Next, we have ACLU of Hawaii. Present? Not present, they are in support. Next, we have Hawaii Food Industry Association on Zoom. Not present. Okay. Community Alliance on Prisons? Kat? Oh, Kat Brady? you want to go, you can go back.
So sorry, committee, I was in the cheap seats. Thank you so much for hearing this measure, and I just want to put in a big pitch for the Hawaii Correctional Systems Oversight Commission, which has done amazing work in 18 months. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation on Zoom. Not present, they are in support. Next, we have Kate Stanley.
Sorry, I can't resist. I have to say a few things. Hi, I'm Kate Stanley, and I'm here because I was chair of the Committee on Weights. Superintendent asked me to serve in the capacity. You have my testimony in support of the bill and asking for an additional $6 million to support our small and rural schools and to fund the reserve fund for the weighted student formula. Before I go further, I'd like to say a special mahalo to Representative Kobayashi for her service to the state, both as an elected official and in administration. I really appreciate you, Bert, and you've been a steadfast person for the state of Hawaii. So I came because I wanted to make sure you folks heard the work of the Committee on Weights and that you understood the importance of supporting small and remote schools and the weighted student formula. I'll answer any questions, but I know you need to get through the bill, and thank you for your hard work, Chair, Vice Chair, and all your members. It's nice to see you all. It's nice to see all my friends in the administration. And I am enjoying retirement. I'm not
you very-
completely retired.
Thank you very much, Kate. Next is Carolyn Eaton. Not present, she is in support. Next, we have Liam Chin on Zoom. Not present, they offer comments. Next, we have Ray Kalehau Kama'u. Not present, they're in support. Next, we have James Naniole on Zoom. Not present, they also offer support. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this measure that I might have missed? Okay, seeing no further testimony, committee members, questions? Yes, Representative Garrett.
Okay, thank you. Finance Director, please.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just wanted to ask you to walk us through Governor's Message 4 that we received yesterday regarding adjustments to the budget. I know we're focusing on HB 1800, but I think this is related.
Yes, and I'm sorry I don't have the particular details, but I will go off of what my memory is right now. I believe Governor's Message 4, which was the first Governor's budget message that was just submitted to you, and apologies again for it being relatively late, did request approximately $69 million of additional funding for the executive supplemental budget. Included in that request are a significant number of asks for the Department of Health in order to address issues associated with the state hospital. I will let Dr. Kenny Fink respond to that. There was also additional requests in the $69 million for about $17.4 million for insurance premiums that the state will have to pay for. There was also an additional request for increased utilities for the Department of Defense, as well as some other small requests included for the Department of Human Resources, some for the Department of Agriculture. I do believe we are asking for approximately almost $2 million for the Farm to Food Bank program. Sorry, I'm working off of memory. I didn't bring the governor's message with me. But in all, it totals approximately $69 million worth of asks.
Okay, in that same GM4, and this is basically a proposed SD2 you folks have put forward on SB 582. You do make reference to the $65 million state portion of the One Ohana Fund. And I heard, and perhaps this is better for the Attorney General, but I did hear the governor in a recent report say that whether we appropriate this money or not, it doesn't matter because he has the authority to do this under the EP. Could someone verify if that's indeed the case?
I would defer and allow the Attorney General to go ahead and respond to that.
The answer is yes. With the EP that was issued yesterday, the EP suspended Section 37-77 and 66211. One is the State Tort Act. Both of these require legislative appropriation to pay claims and settlements against the state. With these two suspended, the governor would be able to take monies from the existing appropriation to pay that $65 million.
So when you say existing appropriation, you mean in that fund itself?
I mean, I'm sorry, in this fiscal year.
Yeah. Okay, so where does that money come from? Is it like a single line item, or I mean, how do you come up with 65 million without legislative appropriations?
We would have to work within the existing appropriation ceiling that we'd have, so we would have to make adjustments from individual departments, potentially withhold restrictions and other types of operational, tools that we have at our resources to, again, remain within the appropriation ceiling that was provided to us by the legislature and cover whatever additional expenses would be related to, in particular to this fund.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to recess for decision-making. Recess.
Okay, we're going to reconvene the Committee on Finance for decision-making. Now we're going to go in the opposite direction because Judiciary is going to be quick. We're going to take that at the end on DM, and then we're going to go over the administration budget first. Okay, so for the administration budget, as we know, a year ago, the committee voted to pass the budget. And we were concerned about the slowing of the economy and due to inflation and several other factors. And as you recall, in September of that year through November, we had a surplus about 6.5%, and it dropped down to about 5.5%. After that, we passed out HD1, and it dropped down to about 2%. And then at the end of session, we ended up going from to -1, and then actual collections came in at -1.7. So we went from a surplus of 6.5 to -7 in that short period of time, and we had to make dramatic cuts to the budget to balance the budget going forward. Our challenges in the aftermath of the wildfire that happened in Lahaina and upcountry. The cost we face to ensure that, the safety and the recovery of our communities is enormous. And at the same time, we have to just kind of preserve our core services and maintain those different things, such as mental health services, not only for the wildfire survivors, but for the many still suffering from the lingering effects of the pandemic, the homelessness, and other challenges. Healthcare, long-term care, home-based care for our disabled and kupuna, high cost of living that we all face, workforce development we have to deal with, housing, and food and nutrition for our most vulnerable. Preserving and maintaining and enhancing these core services is at the focal point of this budget. This budget is very transparent. The budget that's submitted by the governor, I know that he, BNF director, talked about that they're going to be seeing where they can pull money from. But right now, this budget only accounts for about $200 million, and from what we gather, we think it's going to be closer to about $1 billion, the impacts of the wildfire. So this budget accounts for that. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of read highlights, and then after the highlights, I'm going to go into the actual budget items, what we did and what we didn't do. Okay, so House Draft 1800 HD1 appropriates in 2024 $10.737 billion in FY24 in general funds, and FY25 is $11.315 billion. All means of financing in FY24 is $19.027 billion, and FY25 is $20.38 billion. Okay, so for the Department of General Services, this budget puts $1,650,000 for the enterprise financial system project, $200 million for risk management for the insurance administration, $1,248,700 for West Hawaii District Office reorganization, $400 million for menstrual products and dispensers in state buildings, $150,000 for art and healing of the wildfire survivors, $204,400 for the State Foundation of Culture and the Arts, $2,600,000 for the Capital District Security and Monitoring, Security Systems and Monitoring, and $17 million for insurance. Now, some of these items, okay, just to be clear, this budget does not include any of the GMs because we just got it yesterday. So anything that we do put in the budget that is similar is by coincidence, and it was things that the committee considered. So moving on to the Department of Agriculture, there's $700,000 for a system upgrade for animal quarantine, the animal information system, $2 million for the BUCS program, $2.967, $2,967,852 for positions for plant quarantine and inspection, $1,490,100 for positions for plant quarantine branch, $100 million for the Department of Agriculture Administration. For the Department of the Attorney General, $462,134 to the setup of the new Correctional Oversight Commission office. And for moving on to Department of Budget and Finance, we have $13,356,628 for broadband state matching funds, $1,051,100 for known costs of the wildfire. Okay, well, I'm sorry, I gotta repeat that. I did that wrong. $1 billion. This budget accounts for $1,150,100,000 for known related costs for the Maui wildfire. This includes federal assistance match, that we know of at this time, which is $135,300,000 in eligible expenses for the MC1 EMAC, which is $77.4 million. Victim relief, which is $65 million. Shelter for ineligible, $122.5 million. Non-congregate shelter, which we're putting $500 million at this point in time because we are unsure when the reimbursements are going to come, so of all these things. So we have to account for that. We may have to front some of this money. And then additional subsidy of $150.9 million. Okay, for the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, $60 million for HDA, $18 million for positions, $818,630 for positions for solar for all, for the Green Infrastructure Authority, $24.5 million for the Hawaii Convention Center. We're adding positions for HHFDC, $50 million for the Green Infrastructure Revolving Fund, $15 million for Accessory Dwelling Fund, $15 million for that. For the Rental Housing Revolving Fund, we're going to be putting $150 million for Tier 2, $6 million for HTDC, transferring funds and positions from HTDC Corporation Division, $213,785, and add positions for HHFDC. And that was all the things they asked for. $164,450 add positions for HHFDC. For the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, $900,000 for consulting services regarding risk assessments and energy system planning and design for the Division of Consumer Advocacy. $79,608 and positions to aid nurse application process for professional and vocational licensing division. $2.5 million for consolidation of all call center and software upgrades for general support services. For the Department of Defense, $424,344 for HAIMA for disaster response team. $139,909 to enhance recruitment and retention for HAIMA for the warning point workers. $31,619,624 for hazard mitigation grant programs. $7,000 for the Star-based Youth Outreach Educational Program. $497,000 for utility for the Army and Air National Guard. $48,000 for electric upgrades for HAIMA. For the Department of Education, we're putting $14,925,959 for vice principal and education assistant salaries increases. $12,931,380 for student-weighted formula and English language learners. $6 million for student-weighted forum for small and remote schools. $5 billion for athletic, including coaches' salaries and transportation. $413,915 for advanced placement exams. $1.3 million for speech pathology services. $3.6 million for workforce-based learning. $2,722,244 for applied behavioral health analysis. $20,990,000 for summer learning programs. $15 million for electricity. $5 million for security. $18 million for school nutrition. $18,266,346 for bus services. $10 million for door lock replacement and door blockers. $1,250,000 for replacement of air filters. For the Department of Education libraries, $550,000 for security services, $250,000 for temporary library, Princeville, Kaneohe, and Makawao. This is for relocation during renovation. And then for the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, $808,204 increase for positions for NAHASDA loan program. For the Department of Health, $122,506 for position and communicable diseases, public health nursing services for Kalapapa Settlement. $230,604 for position for Maui County Certification Community Behavioral Health Clinic Services. $6,800,000 for Hawaii State Hospital Contract Services. $13 million for adult mental health and psychiatric and physicians. $10,800,000 for chair and adolescent mental health services. $800,000 for positions and children with special health needs branch. $4,962,487 for family health services, early intervention section for services. $2,200,000 $20,328 for position and office medical cannabis and control regulation, $100,000 for Office of Medical Cannabis Control and Regulation for post-marketing testing, $790,000 for Office of Health Care Assurance to complete healthcare facility management information systems. $2,512,750 fund for emergency medical services for the county of Kauai, Maui, and the Big Island. $400,000 for executive office on learning. $9,600,000 aging. Executive office on aging. $9,657,400 for Neighbor Island Pilot Stability and Behavioral Health Crisis Center, $1 million for Environmental Health Administration for statewide needs assessment, $100,000 for Early Intervention Working Group for the Deaf and Blind and Hard of Hearing, $2 million for a pilot project for essential rural medical air transportation, Department of Human Services and Resource Development, $71,016 to support workforce attraction, select classification, and effectiveness, $739,080 for statewide hiring and recruitment efforts, $25,000 for employee training and membership. For the Department of Human Services, $6 million for preschool open doors program, $15,525,000 for home and care, home and community-based services, $1 million for youth safety, housing, mental health support, and LGBTOQ plus services. $12,751,554 for disaster case management grant for wildfire recovery, $611,850 for post-adoption services, $6,500,000 for applied behavior analysis, $23,620,000 for Medicare in-home services, $3 million for mobile care clinic. For the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, $2,200,000 for unemployment insurance, $300,000 for labor law enforcement special fund. For the Department of Land and Natural Resources, we have $297,500 for positions and equipment for Climate Commission staff, $900,000 to upgrade public land management, $5,500,000 for forestry management for fire resilient and landscape, wildlife habitat and endangered species, $7,425,000 for fire suppression, readiness, and post-fire restoration and rehabilitation, $13,549,000 for natural resource and fire protection programs, $1.5 million for public land management, $1,412,928 for fire protection programs, $475,000 for water resource management and hydrologic data collection, $750,000 for Red Hill Water Alliance Initiative, $3,549,000 for wildlife equipment. You want to take over?
Okay. Last page, Department of Law Enforcement, $1.5 million for Law Enforcement Training Division, $13,362,396 for the Office of Homeland Security, and $1,265,600 for Fireworks Task Force. Department of Public Safety, $319,212 to transfer training officers from individual facilities back to general administration to streamline and improve training. Department of Taxation, $199,200 for increased collection efforts, subscriptions, and trainings, $98,000 for updated security measures to the Department of Taxation building, and $126,192 for supporting services to establish a senior software developer. Department of Transportation, $644,197 of a transfer of positions for the Airport Rescue and Firefighting Team at Ellison Onizuka Kona International Airport. $3 million for routine and maintenance for Oahu Highway's roadside safety maintenance services. $1.25 million for Google Safety Analytics to collect data needed to develop strategies for ensuring the safety of Hawaii's roads for the Highway Administration. And the University of Hawaii, $17,526,848 to partially restore pandemic-era cuts to UH Manoa to be distributed among the campuses as follows. $5.6 million to UH Manoa, $1.8 million for the John A. Burns School of Medicine, $3.42 million to UH Hilo, $1.62 million to UH West Oahu, and $5,086,848 to the UH General Fund. $925,000 for JABSOM's Neighbor Island Health Access and Pathway Extension, which expands access to healthcare to underserved communities. $3.7 million for the Hawaii Promise Scholarship Program. $12,506,711 for four-year Promise Program for UH Manoa. $1,773,579 for the four-year Promise Program for UH Hilo. $4,026,116 for the four-year Promise Program for UH West Oahu, and $12 million for the University of Hawaii Tuition and Fees Special Fund.
Okay, thank you very much. So members, those are the highlights. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to go over for each department what we did not agree with in the administration's budget and what we changed. Okay, so for the Department of Agriculture, and some of these were in the highlights earlier, but we're going to go over detail. So the Department of Agriculture, AGR 122, sequence 10001, plant quarantine inspectors, means of financing conversion, 46 positions from B fund to A fund, $2,967,552 A fund. We're going to add AGR 122, sequence 1001,001, noxious weed specialist, convert 2 positions from pest control tech to noxious weed specialist 5, 32,436 A fund. Add AGR 122, sequence 1002,001, plant quarantine inspection 3, redescribe, convert 3 positions, 92,244 A fund. Add AGR 122, sequence 1003,001, add plant quarantine inspection 3 and 4, add 22 positions for funds per department request, $1,490,112 A fund. AGR 151, sequence 60,001, reduce office assistant 3 and egg commodity specialist 5. Modify 003, but take egg commodity specialist 3 instead of the funds for unfunded position. Egg 171, sequence 100,001, farm to food bank 720,000 A fund, House does not concur. AGR 192, sequence 101,001, the Bucks program, $1 million. We're going to increase it $2 million and make $1 million non-recurring. Ag 192, sequence 1,001, grant writer, add 1 grant writer and funds for $100,000. On page 32 of the, if you guys following, nobody's following. Okay, Ag 131, sequence 101,001, lease maintenance for Hawaii Wireless interoperability network. We're going to modify and make it recurring. AGS 203, sequence 1001, insurance, adding funds, ceiling for insurance, 17 million A fund and W fund. AGS 221, sequence 1001, menstrual products, state buildings, adding 400,000 A funds. AGS 881, sequence 1001, arts and healing, Maui wildfire, $150,000. AGS 881, sequence 1001,001, National Endowment for Arts and Increase, state match, add funds, $2,200 A funds and $2,200 N funds. On page 56, AGS 901, sequence 1001, Capital District Security and Security Monitoring, transfer from Law 900 to Capital Security costs and sheriffs to be U-funded back to Law 500, $5,481,362 A funds, transfer from ERS Buff 141 for fringe benefits for 30 Deputy Sheriffs 2. Continuing with the Attorney General, ATG 100, sequence 101001, Victim Witness Program Career and Career Criminal Prosecution Fund, modify and remove city and county portfolio negative $1,484,052 A fund. ATG 100 sequence 1001, add attorneys to handle caseload because of that. 5 positions, 5 permanent, $525,796 A funds. ATG sequence 1001, add position for bail forfeiture. Convert 3 positions and 1 position funds, $336,800 A funds. For Business Economic Development and Tourism, BED 105, sequence 1001, Creative Media ceiling increase. House does not concur. Add BED 105, sequence 1001, transfer unfunded personnel, to BED 143. BED 113, sequence 100,001, funds for HTA modify to OCE distribution. On page 79, BED 113, sequence 101,001, add ceiling for Convention Center Special Fund, modify insurance to $700,000, modify $16 million non-recurring, new total $24,500,000. BED 120, sequence 100,001, Energy Security Special Fund ceiling increase. House does not concur. BED 120, sequence 101,001, for Chief Energy Officer's salary increase. House does not concur. BED 138, sequence 100,001, Green Infrastructure Staffing, modify to adjust for correct fringe values. 1.25 position B fund, 1.75 P fund, 374,369 in B funds, 444,261 in P funds. For BED 138, sequence 1001, Green Infrastructure Revolving Run ceiling increase, to increase the ceiling to $50 million. Sorry. Moving on to BED 143, sequence 1001, HTDC, adding funds, $6 million A fund. BED 143, sequence 1001, transfer in positions for creative industries and redescribe aerospace coordinator assistant, transfer 1 position, funds and salary, $59,616 A funds. BED 160, 1001 HHFDC, add project manager 3 W funds, $213,785 W funds. BED 166, sequence 1001 HHFDC, financial specialists, $180,895 W funds. BED 160, sequence 1002 HHFDC, housing compliance manager, 1 position, $164,450 W funds. BED 160, sequence 1003 HHFD, travel costs for Maui wildfire response, $30,680 W funds. BED 160, sequence 1004 HHFD, travel costs for Maui wildfire response, $15,340 W funds. BED 160, sequence 1005 HHFDC, Travel costs for Maui wildfire response, 15,340 W funds. BED sequence 1,6001 HHFDC salary increase for recruiting and retention, 2,364 W funds, 5 positions. BED 160 sequence 1,7001 HHFDC salary increase for recruitment and retention, $440,044 W funds, 10 positions. BED 160 sequence 108001 HHFDC funds for salary increase for recruitment and retention, $31,032 W funds, 2 positions. BED 166 sequence 1,9001 HFDC funds for salary increase and recruitment and retention, $289,396 W funds, 6 positions. BED 160 sequence 1,010,001 HHFDC funds and salary for increase for recruitment and retention W funds, $19,334 W fund, 1 position. BED 160 sequence 1,011,001 HHFDC funds for training, $6,000 W funds. BED 160 1,012,001 HHFDC fundings for training, $10,000 W fund. BED 160 sequence 1,013,001 HHFDC training, 14,000 W funds. BED 160 sequence 1,014,001 HHFDC consultant services for LITEC, $30,000 W funds. BED 166 sequence 1,015,001 HHFDC computer and software maintenance, 215,000 W funds. BED 166 sequence 1,016,001 accessory dwelling revolving fund, $15 million A funds. BED 160 sequence 1,017,001 rental housing revolving one for Tier 2 funding, $150 million. BED 170 sequence 102,001 ADRC funding for vehicles, $110,000 non-recurring. BED 180 sequence 100,001 Aloha Stadium ceiling, $49.5 million. House does not concur. Budget and Finance, Buff 101, Sequence 101,001, Funds for Senior Management Position Salary Increase, $240,000 A funds. House does not concur. Buff 101, Sequence 102,001, Funds for Program Budget Analyst Conversion, $275,076 A funds. House does not concur. Buff 101, Sequence 103,001, Funds for Wildfire, $186,160,000 A funds. Okay, we're modifying to $1,051,100,000 A fund. Federal assistance share will be $135.3 million. Ineligible expenses for MC1 EMAC, $77.4 million. Victim Relief Fund, $65 million. Shelter for ineligible, $122.5 million. Non-congregate shelters, $500 million. Additional subsidy, $150.9 million. Buff 141, Sequence 1,001. Transfer A funds for ERS to ATG 901 for Deputy Sheriff 2 Fringe. Transfer $1,129,242 A funds, AGS 901 Comptroller for 30 Deputy Sheriffs 2 Fringe benefits. Okay.
Okay. Commerce and Consumer Affairs, page 128. CCA 102, sequence 100-001, adjusting fringe benefits, modifying it to 14,153 B funds. Page 129, if you're following, committee members. CCA 103, sequence 100-001, PUC risk assessment, $900,000 in B funds. We're modifying it to non-recurring. Page 131. CCA 104, sequence 100-001, adjusting fringe benefits, modifying to $69,366 in B funds. Page 133, CCA 105, sequence 101-001, adjusting fringe benefits, modifying to $41,852 in B funds. Page 135, CCA 106, sequence 102-001, adjusting fringe benefits, modifying it to $100,624 in B funds. Page 139, CCA 111, sequence 100-001, adjusting fringe benefits, modifying it to $175,647 in B funds. Page 144, CCA 191, sequence 104-001, adjusting fringe benefits, modifying it to $71,728 in B funds. Page 145, CCA 901, sequence 100-001, PUC contract services, $1 million B funds, modifying that to non-recurring. Page 146, CCA 901, sequence 101-001, PUC ceiling for funds from DCCA, $900,000 in B funds, we're modifying it to non-recurring. Department of Defense, page 152. Defense 112, sequence 100-001, Office of Veteran Services Director salary increase of $3,024 in A funds. The House does not concur. Page 155. Defense 116, sequence 60-001, reduced position for BUF requiring trade-off to add. House does not concur. Page 156. Defense 116, sequence 101-001, utility cost adjustment of $100,000 in A funds, modifying it to $497,000 in A funds. Page 161. Defense 118, sequence 101-001, HIEMA positions of 20 and funds for wildfire. It's being modified to 6 positions and funds, which include $424,344. Department of Education, page 169. EDN 100, sequence 102-001. Vice Principal and Educational Assistant pay increases, $18,377,674 in A funds is being modified to $14,925,959 in A funds. EDN 100, sequence 1000-001, weighted student formula increase and English language learners adding $12,931,380 in A funds. EDN 100, sequence 1001-001, weighted student formula for small and remote schools adding $6 million in A funds. EDN 100, sequence 1002-001, athletics, transportation, and coach salaries adding $5 million in A funds. EDN 100, sequence 1003-001, advanced placement exams adding $413,915 in A funds. EDN 100, sequence 1004-001, positions and funds for Ka'apuni program support, adding 10 positions and funds totaling $1,122,648 in A funds. EDN 200, sequence 1000-001, summer learning program, adding $20,990,000 in A funds. EDN 400, sequence 100-001, funds for electricity, $15 million in A funds, modifying it to be non-recurring. EDN 400, sequence 101-001, school security and active threat response training, $8 million in A funds, modifying it to $5 million in A funds. EDN 400, sequence 103-001, funds for food and nutrition program, $21 million in A funds, modifying it to $18 million in A funds. EDN 400, sequence 1000-001, HEPA filter replacement, adding $1,250,000 in A funds. Charter schools, all sequences, House does not concur. Page 183. EDN 600, sequence 100-001, funds for Kulia Academy. House does not concur. EDN 600, sequence 101-001, funds for teacher differentials. House does not concur. Page 184, EDN 600, sequence 102-001, funds for EA and vice principal pay increases. House does not concur.
This one, we just trying to make it all consistent with student-weighted formula. So that's the next sequence.
Okay. Page 184, EDN 600, sequence 103-001, per pupil adjustment. $12,463,882 in A funds, modifying to account for the appropriations to EDN 100, 200, 300, and 400, which the new total is $16,875,004 in A funds. EDN 700, sequence 1000-001, adding positions and federal funds for preschool development birth through 5 grant. Add 2 positions and funds totaling $130,000 in P funds. That concludes education.
Okay, for the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, on page 191, HHL 602, sequence 100-001, has the position, salaries, and funds. Modify and update positions and funding per department. 6 positions, $8,404 and funds. HHL 625, sequence 100-001, wildfire prevention, grass trimming, etc., $20 million. This is the one that we're going to kind of work together with. So we're going to make a $1 placeholder, and this is what we're going to work together with. LNR has a similar request, so we're going to kind of work with them together. Moving on to the Human Services, page 205. HMS 224, sequence 100-001, COLA for homeless program contract 5%, $1,320,000 A fund. This one we're going to review also. We're going to $1 it for now. On page 209, HMS 229, sequence 80-001, conversion for public housing specialist 1 from temp to perm, end funds. House does not concur. HMS 229, sequence 100-001, converting positions from temp to perm, W to end fund. House does not concur. HMS 301, sequence 1000-001, purchase of service, post-adoption services, $11,850 A funds. HMS 401, sequence 1000-001, applied behavior analysis payments for Medicaid, $2,690,000 A funds, $3,810,000 in N funds. HMS 401, sequence 1000-001, Medicaid for in-home services, $9,680,000 A fund, $13,940,000 N fund. On page 222, HMS 501, sequence 32001, transfer in general professionals 3 from HMS 503. House does not concur. HMS 503, sequence 32001, transfer out general professional 3 to HMS 501. House does not concur. HMS 904, sequence 100-001, deputy director and private secretary 2. House does not concur. HMS 904, sequence 101-001, Fed funds and state funds for disaster case management, $13,250,000 A funds, 6 positions, and permanent $12,751,554 A fund, N fund. House does not concur with the funding portion of the request of $13,250,000 A fund. Okay, moving on to HMS 904, sequence 1000-001, mobility treatment clinic. Add funds for mobility treatment clinic, $3 million A funds. Department of Health. HTH 420, sequence 100-001, Evale Behavioral Health Crisis Center. We're going to put a $1 placeholder for that. HTH sequence 1000-001, Evale Resource Center and Neighbor Island Pilot Program, $9,657,400 The pilot, I think, is going to be on the Big Island. On page 266, HDH 430, sequence 100-001, forensic mental health bed contracts with Kahimohala, Castle, and Correction Care in South Carolina, $20 million. Modify Kahimohala to $1, making the total $6,800,000, $1, A funds. HDH 430, sequence 101-001, locum tenens contracts, $6,800,000 and $1, A fund, modified, non-recurring. HDH 440, sequence 20-001, transfer out funds to HDH 440, sequence 20-003, modify salary via salary savings, $3,947, A funds. On page 270, HDH 440, sequence 20002, transfer out salary and savings, negative 3,947 A funds. Modify transfer outpatient from salaries to positions, negative 3,947 A funds. HDH 440, sequence 20003, transfer in personnel services to fund salaries from HDH 440, sequence 20-001 and 20-002, $63,096 A funds. House does not concur. HDH 460, sequence 100-001, COLA increase in contracts, $10,800,000 A funds. House does not concur. HDH 596, sequence 100-001. HDH 59. I missed one? Oh, I'm sorry. HDH 460, sequence 100-001, COLA increase for contracts, $10,008,000. Oh, I'm sorry. This is modify and non-recurring. Okay. HDH 596, sequence 100-001, positions and funds, including public information campaign for Office of Medical Cannabis, modified $2 million, non-recurring. HDH 849, sequence 1000-001, statewide needs assessments, extend producer policy program, $1 million, A fund. On page 325, HDH 906, sequence 100-001, ship the administration salary increase, $67,338, A fund. We're going to play a placeholder of $1 for now. HDH 907, sequence 1000-001, early intervention working group for the deaf and hard of hearing, $100,000, A fund. HDH 907, sequence 1001-001, essential rural air medical transportation pilot program, $2 million, A fund. Law 900. We're moving into law right now. Law 900, sequence 100-001, fireworks task force, $200,000, modified to $1,265,600, A funds. On page 337, Law 900, sequence 101-001, funds for Capital District Security, $2,600,000, A funds, modify and convert original requests to U funds and convert funds for 30 Deputy Sheriffs 2 and Fringe to U funds from AGS 901. Department of Land and Natural Resources, LNR 101, sequence 100-001, climate change and positions and funds, modify, remove cell phone amount, change amount from of non-recurring, change amount for amount of non-recurring, 3 positions, $297,500 A fund, $7,500 A fund non-recurring. On page 361, LNR 172, sequence 101-001, resource management including land acquisition for forest management, removal of invasive ungulate and equipment. Modify to remove the $2 million land acquisition and make it non-recurring. LNR 172, sequence 1000-001, funds for Act 90 non-ag lease transfers, $1,500,000, A fund. LNR 401, sequence 102-001, ceiling increase for anticipated special fund revenue use, software and app. House does not concur. On page 370, LNR 402, sequence 103-001, funds for wildfire equipment, $10 million A fund, modify increase to the department's original request of $13,549,000 A fund. LNR 402, sequence 104001, funds for Hawaii Ant Lab, $500,000, modified to add 7 positions for Oahu and fund $500,000 non-recurring. 7 positions, total now $1,277,770 A fund and $500,000 non-recurring. LNR 402, sequence 100001, positions for wildfire response, add FTE and funds, 22 positions perm, $1,412,928. LNR 404, sequence 100001, hydrologic data collection and water resource management, $475,000. LNR 405, sequence 100, vessel purchase, $521,473 B funds, 473 B funds. House does not concur. LNR 801, sequence 102001, purchase of 2 vessels, 300,000 B funds. House does not concur. LNR 806, sequence 100,001, park services, park special fund, equipment and vehicle replacement, $2 million non-recurring, modified to $1 million recurring. LNR 906, sequence 1000,001, Y policy coordinator and 2 positions. Add FTE and funds, 3 positions, $750,000. LNR 906, sequence 1001,001, and funds for recruitment and retention, $299,894 A funds and $151,838 B funds.
Department of Taxation, page 429. Tax 100, sequence 30-001, transfer in of postage, 60,000 in A funds, modified to 20,000 A funds. Page 431, Tax 103, sequence 30-001, transfer in postage, 140,000 in A funds, modified to 290,000 in A funds. Page 433, Tax 105, sequence 1000-001, transfer in postage, 150,000 in A funds, and add 150,000 in A funds. Page 434, Tax 107, sequence 30-001, transfer out postage, negative $60,000 in A funds, modified to negative $20,000 in A funds. Page 435, Tax 107, sequence 31-001, transfer out postage of negative $140,000 in A funds, modified to negative $290,000 in A funds. Page 436, Tax 107, sequence 101-001, funds for license renewal, $50,000 in A funds, modified to $54,572 in A funds. Page 437, Tax 107, sequence 104-001, add 1 temporary senior software developer for $126,192 in A funds, modified to permanent senior software developer at the same amount. Page 437, Tax 107, sequence 1000-001, transfer out of postage, negative $150,000 in A funds, and that same is transfer out. Department of Transportation, page 445, transfer TRN 114, sequence 101-001, funds for safety gear, modified to non-recurring. Page 474, Transportation 501, sequence 101-001, roadside maintenance for Oahu, $900,000 in B funds. House does not concur. Page 476, Transportation 511, sequence 101-001, County of Hawaii Police Services, $300,000 in B funds. House does not concur. Page 478, Transportation 531, sequence 100-001, vehicle purchase, $360,621 in B funds. House does not concur. Page 481, Transportation 595, sequence 100-001, stored property and debris removal, $5 million in A funds. House does not concur. Page 486, Transportation 995, sequence 70-001, reclassify federal funds, $6,025,000 in N funds, and, transferring it into N funds from P funds and modifying non-recurring. Last one, University of Hawaii, page 491. UOH 100, sequence 31-001, transfer Professor Hilo to Manoa, House does not concur. UOH 100, sequence 1000-001, four-year promise program, UH Manoa, added funds of $12,506,711 in A funds. UOH 100, sequence 1001-001, University of Hawaii, tuition and fees special fund ceiling, added funds of $12 million in B funds. Page 498, UOH 210, sequence 31-001, transfer Professor Hilo to Manoa, House does not concur. UOH 210, sequence 1000-001, four-year promise program for UH Hilo, added funds of $1,773,579 in A funds. UOH 700, sequence 1000-001, four-year promise program for UH West Oahu, added funds of $4,026,116 in A funds.
Okay, so those are the changes that we made on the operating budget, and I'll turn it over to Chair Nishimoto on the CIP budget.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the work that you and the Vice Chair and the members of this committee have done. We are passing out the CIP budget now. Just a few brief comments. So we all know this has been a challenging budget year. The administration's budget that was given to us was $144 million over the debt ceiling. Because the GM only came down yesterday, we were not able to consider the GM in the CIP budget. So your committee was forced to figure out how to get to the black for the budget to make up for the $144 million that was over. I really want to thank my staff for their hard work on this. It took a lot of creativity, research, and hard work to get to where we are. You folks have the CIP budget now. If you have any questions, I'll take them now. If not, Chair, thank you.
You don't want to read it? No?
What's in it?
I did miss part of your presentation, and I wanted to ask you to go over it again, but
Okay, starting from the top. Okay, so thank you. Members, those are kind of the recommendations from the committee. We also want to make a couple more comments. So again, to reiterate what we said earlier, this does not include any of the GMs that came down. If it did include it, that was by coincidence. Any of the appropriations that had any 6-month delay, the committee decided to fully fund it. We're going to put a defective date on this. We're going to have some tech amendments and some cleanup language. Any discussion? Okay. Vice Chair for the vote. HD1.
Okay. Recommendation of the chairs to pass House Bill 1800 with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ayu. Aye. Representative Chun. Aye. Representative Cochran is excused. Representative Garrett.
Aye.
Representative Kahaloa.
Aye.
Representative Kila. Representative Kobayashi.
Aye.
Representative Lamosao. Representative Morikawa is excused. Representative Nishimoto. Representative Poi Poi. Representative Takenouchi. Representative Alcos is excused. Representative Ward is excused. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. We're going to move to the next agenda item, House Bill 1911, the judiciary budget. Okay, so this is real quick. There's only 3 things. So the changes are on page 1, JUD 101, sequence 80-001, convert court operations specialist 2 to temp position. House does not concur. On JUD 350, sequence 100-001, funds for family court judge. House does not concur. JUD 601, sequence 106-001, funds for Olelo Hawaii Program Translation and Language Services. modify to non-recurring. We're also going to defect the date, make technical amendments, and some cleanup language. Any discussion? Okay, Vice Chair for the vote.
Recommendation of the chairs to pass House Bill 1911 HD1 with amendments, noting the excused absences of Representatives Cochran, Morikawa, Alcos, and Ward. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Again, I'd like to thank you for all your work on House Draft 1, as well as the staff on all they've done and everything. But, you know, as we all know, we're not even halfway there. So we'll see you on the next round. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.